Today is our 100th episode for our podcast, and we talked to Robyn Johnson. Couldn't be a better opportunity to talk to an Amazon expert, business owner, and somebody who can go toe-to-toe with me on all things Amazon. Robyn is the co-founder of Marketplace Blueprint, a digital agency that does similar things to My Amazon Guy. And we talk about today all kinds of Black Swan events, highly unpredictable, impactful events. Talk about her journey as she sold on the Amazon platform, as well as running her own agency, and many other good pieces of advice as you're trying to survive and thrive going into Q4 in 2020 and into next year. Hope you enjoy it. It's a treat. This is the My Amazon Guy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pope, founder of the agency My Amazon Guy. Tune in each week to learn how to grow your Amazon sales. I'm now joined by Robyn. Thanks for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to get to share and talk about all these geeky Amazon things you can't talk about at dinner parties with normal people.
I know, right? So I am really excited because there are not very many people in the country that I feel like could have a deep intellectual conversation about Amazon like you and I are going to have today. And this is our 100th podcast episode for My Amazon Guy, and it's a real treat to make you be our guest for our 100th. So thank you very much.
I'm excited to be on. Thank you for kind of the honor of being that 100th show, and congratulations on getting to 100 shows. Not a lot of podcasts do that, so
I know it's a big deal. So super excited by it. We've covered everything from journeys to experts and tools and everything in between. So on our podcast today, I am excited to talk partially about your journey and partially about your wisdom. So let's get into that. So Robyn, you've had a difficult last year, as I understand it, and walk us through that. And we're kind of calling this the Black Swan podcast because COVID's a black swan, and what I mean by that is it's a highly improbable, highly impactful event that you can't predict. And you also experienced one of those in your life. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that to give some of our listeners some background on your story.
Yeah, I mean, I was, a little bit before January 2019, our business was going really well. I was very busy. I was running basically 3 businesses. Things were, we were always going. We've got a big family. We've got, 6 people in our house and 2 dogs. And it was kind of all of the great things that kind of go along with that. And I had been feeling kind of tired and run down, but, when you're running 3 businesses, it's hard to tell. I had some things checked out. They said I was fine. But, I was like, well, I'm running 3 businesses. Maybe I should, at the new year, I should kind of look at maybe tapering that down a little bit. Maybe I'm just tired. So I tried to rest more. And then one day I went to go pick up my daughter from cooking classes. She was 9 at the time, and she would take little cooking classes at the local grocery store. And I just walking in and walking back out, you couldn't breathe. It was kind of like when you've jogged a little bit too far and just like so I drove us home, and then I went to my husband and I said, I think we need to go to the emergency room. And it started to get worse and worse. And they took us back really fast, which is always, isn't it? You don't really want them to rush you to the back.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
Yeah. So, there was this moment where, we were actually driving from the urgent care to the ER, and they had said you need to go quickly. And I was trying to not freak out my husband. I was like, not that I'm going to die, but if I died,
Oh, geez Louise.
Eddie would help you with this part of the business and kind of wrapping this piece up, and Cindy can help you with this piece over here. And, so it was, I had this moment where I really thought I really might die because I couldn't breathe. My heart was racing. I used my phone and, laying in the car, my heartbeat was 138.
Wow.
Resting. So, I was like, I must be having a heart attack. I'm going to die. And so we get to the hospital, and they're like, you're not having a heart attack. And they wanted to do another test. And so they came back in and they said, we found 2 things. One's you have a pulmonary embolism, which if you watch Grey's Anatomy, that never really ends well. So basically a blood clot in my lung. And at the same time, they also found a nodule on my thyroid, which ended up being thyroid cancer.
2 for 1. Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I was hospitalized for several days, and then I had to then have a surgery, which took me out for several more weeks. And your thyroid runs everything. And so while I was adjusting that, for the majority of the year, because of, either the treatment for the cancer, the treatment for the embolism, or, reactions to side effects of different things, I was barely able to work 20 hours a week for mostly 3/4 of the week. So I went from working a lot and having a really active family life where I was go, 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 to I watched a lot of TV last year. I slept a lot last year.
Nothing like a near-death experience to make you think, wish I had a standard operating procedure in business.
Well, and luckily we did. So I'm very systems oriented. I'm all about trying to get people to do systems. And so most of our clients didn't even know I was out. The only people who knew that I was really down were, close friends that I told what was going on. But for the most part, I was able to keep our business completely running. In fact, we actually had year-over-year growth last year, even with me being out. But
that's just props to the system you built, which is fantastic. That's good to hear.
And the team, right? So, if I, my husband works within the company here, and then, especially my assistant, like he's not an assistant anymore, Hector, he's really, he took over a lot of things, and he really took it as a good chance to expand his role.
How young is your youngest kid?
So my youngest kid, she's 10 now.
Okay. So we have 3 kids under 5. And I've always kind of wondered, like, when can I pull my wife back into the business? Because like right now it's impossible. So was there a certain age, like when your kids were a certain age, like you felt like, both you and the husband could work on it?
I'm not a good person to ask.
Okay.
So I started my business when my daughter was 6 months old and my son was 3.5.
All right.
And I did that while I was working at a church. So we built up our business really fast. So if you're trying to manage young kids and business, I'd really recommend looking into the Montessori kind of pedology of education. You can do kind of what's called play and walk away. So you get them started on self-correcting tasks. And so that was how I was able to run my business, until they were about until they were in preschool age. We had them, I had a mother's helper for a little while. And so I think that if you hired a mother's helper, you could probably do it today if she wanted to.
Easier said than done, especially with COVID, man. The demand on help right now, very difficult. All right. So that is quite the Black Swan event, a highly impactful, unpredictable event in your life. And it had you make some changes, both personally, family, as well as for your business. And so we also had a big Black Swan event this year with COVID, and that threw everybody off guard as well. So by now, most people know how to, get around and operate. So we're not going to dwell on this question, but maybe just for one question here, what advice would you give somebody so that they could learn from your story?
So being in the hospital, being out of thing, you would think that, one of the things that I really got clear on was that I had really kind of gotten caught in a trap. And that trap is, I'm going to work really hard, and one day, someday, my life will turn out. And I'll just keep working hard, and you might not have tomorrow. So you might think, I will get my systems up tomorrow. I will get my systems up after Q4. I will get my systems up after this year. If you don't do it now, you might not get the opportunity. And also, you don't know how, especially with COVID, you don't know how many more Christmases you have with your parents. You don't know how many more Christmases you have with your kids. So while it is really important to drive your business and to work your business and to have a plan, work your plan, plan your work your plan, it is also really important to build in ink time for your family and create a life that you really love living. And I think that has made this year has actually been, I even hate to say it because so many people are struggling so much, but this year has been really, except for obviously the quarantine and because
sounds like you got a positive outlook despite all the circumstances, though.
Yeah, no, I really focus on making sure that I make time for the things that are important in my business and triage. And I always kind of looked at things with kind of a triage approach in my business. But even more now, I saw somebody posted, a friend posted a meme that said, especially being a working mom is kind of like juggling a bunch of balls all at the same time. But some of those balls are plastic and some of them are glass. And so, as you're focusing on which balls, you're going to have to drop some
Are you
balls, but
sure
you
they're
have to
balls?
know.
You sure there's not like an axe and a chainsaw?
Sometimes, and so sometimes people, so I've been very blessed to be mentored by Sharon Lecter, who co-wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, and she also,
Fantastic book. We actually
it's
talked
amazing.
about it maybe 4 or 5 podcasts ago with Wayne the Wolf Wolford and his Amazon journey. So yeah, I'm a huge fan too.
So, that book, it's, you can tell she's very business oriented, but she also kind of worked on the project for Think and Grow Rich for Women. And in the Think and Grow Rich for Women, that she has there's this chapter in there called My Big Life. And it really talks about how, women are especially always looking for work-life balance. And there is no such thing as balance. Balancing indicates everything's going to be static. So whether you're a
Right.
dad or you don't have
Yeah,
any
something has to
kids,
give.
yeah. So sometimes you're going to be, you might spend have a really good time with your friends and neglect your business for a day. And sometimes you're going to neglect your family for your business, but it's making sure that the overall, when you look that you're really focusing on the things that are going to give you the life that you want. So one of the things where I see people struggle is when you go to outsource, when you go to systemize, it's going to slow you down more than it helps you in the beginning.
And you're going to be like,
Which
oh, this is frustrating. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't hire that agency or whatever, right? Or hire the Philippines
it would be faster
virtual
for me to just do
assistant.
it myself, right?
Exactly, which is a classic problem I run into all the time because I've got the Meyer-Briggs personality trait for architect, and I just want to learn how it works and do it myself. But it does take some like serious work to let some things go.
And you have to
And
be okay that nobody's going to do the job the way that you do the job.
no, definitely
I
not.
have an amazing team, and there's still things I'm like, oh, I would have done this differently. But you have to say, you have to be really clear. One of the things that Sharon taught me is, she would ask people, if money and time and money wasn't a consideration, what would you be doing with your life? And building a business that supports that. So, if you know that if you didn't have to worry about money, if you didn't have to worry about having enough time, that you would spend your time traveling, or you would spend your time working for help make things better for foster kids. You need to start building your business in a direction that will ultimately get you to that destination.
I'm going to be farming
No?
mangoes in Mexico someday. So peace, guys. No.
Well, okay, but let's take that as an example. If you know that that's what you want to do, then do you really want to build a business that relies on you for your own logistics? Or,
Yep.
like if you're planning on moving to Europe, then, unless you want to be working in the middle of the night, you need to have something where your presence at a certain time period isn't. And so starting to look at exactly what you want and then building a business and building up the systems that support that possibility.
What,
So, if you want to go to a foreign country and travel, that means that, you need to have a team that isn't rely on your physical presence there and is able to be empowered to make decisions on their own.
which is an interesting culture to build. When I went to China to learn how to source a few years back, and having conversations with Chinese suppliers, and keeps you up late at night, there was a lifestyle where I was like, you know what, I'm an 8-hour sleep guy. This is not going to work for me. So I stepped away from anything related to sourcing. There are many, many good sourcing experts out there. I know how to source. I'm not an expert in it. So that's one thing I outsource for, or refer out to. So so last comment on kind of the when things are going well concept, right? Like you don't take time to have a backup and be ready to go. So like what would you say the number one thing that you did to succeed, to have that growth while having to deal with that near death experience stuff?
So the biggest thing is you will like waiting until you have time to create systems is like waiting until you're ready to have children. It will never happen. And there's never a good time to have children. There's never a good time to write processes.
And you and I both have a pile of kids. So yeah.
So, what I would say is that you need to carve this out in ink. Like some of you already have religious obligations, or you're really dedicated to your exercise regiment, or you're really dedicated to being there for your kids' soccer practices. You have to put this in your calendar like one of those things. This is in ink, that you're putting some time in, and you create some accountability around that. So, I have an accountability partner that we talk every other week, and one of the big things we talk about is, systemizing our plans for marketing, and we really are, she's really good at saying, that doesn't sound like that's in alignment with what you told me you really wanted for your life.
So you got to report to somebody is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Somebody to return and report to. Makes sense.
Is it Gretchen Rubin? It's like the habit of happiness or something along that. But if you Google Gretchen Rubin and the happy habit, something like that, she talks about how there's 4 different kinds of people. There's the rebel that as soon as you tell them they need to do something, they don't want to do that. So if you're that person, I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm saying it might be a good idea. And then there's people who, again, I forget all of them. It's been a while since I've read them, but most people, there's some people who are autodidactic that, if they set a goal, they will make it happen. They don't need any input. They don't need any pressure. And then there's other folks that you're really good in keeping your obligations to your school, to your church.
Here are the 4 types. I Googled it here.
Okay.
Upholders.
Yes.
Generally meet both inner and outer expectations, meaning they don't let others or themselves down. Questioners meet only their internal expectations. They push back. So it has to mean
they have to have a good reason.
Yeah.
So they won't do it unless it makes sense, right?
And then they push back against all external expectations. Obligers meet outer expectations, but not always inner ones. I think I'm the questioner. My wife is the obliger. She's always serving others over herself. And then finally, rebels resist both inner and outer experts. They value authenticity and self-determination. I love it. I'll put a link to this.
So a questioner might say like, okay, I want to do this, and so I'll do it. A rebel, as soon as like they make the decision, they don't want to do it, even if it was something that they put on themselves. But most people are obligers, and that means that you are more likely to keep a commitment if you have an external accountability. That's why some people need accountability partners, some people don't. But most people, it helps to have that accountability. I'm pretty good at getting things done when I set my mind to something, but knowing that I have an accountability partner and having coaches and having mentors that I pay a good amount of money for some of my coaches to make sure that I have everything, that has been a big thing. So not only do I have accountability partners, but I have a high performance coach through the organization called Landmark Education, and she's really, she really has helped me throughout the years. Sometimes I'm on with her, sometimes I'm off with her. I don't have her all the time, but she really is good at like helping me look at creating a future instead of just kind of living in. I think that's one of the things that as business owners that can be this big trap, is that you're not creating your business intentionally. You're just kind of saying, well, I was talking to a coaching client that's like, well, what do I do? Because I have to grow next year. I have to grow next year. And I said, well, let's take a second. Do you have to grow next year? And she's like, well, of course I have to grow. I have to grow.
Every business ever must grow or it's dying. Yeah.
No, that's not. Sometimes what's needed for real growth is a year of plateau for you to build out your systems, build out your team, build out your cash flow, whatever it is.
Instead of getting 5% growth every year, you plateau for 1, and then you can grow 50 that next year. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not, so it's easy to just say, well, this is the next step. This is the next step because I'm here and then I need to go there. But if you do that, I actually work with, one of the things that I've done over the years is I've coached a lot of really high volume private label and arbitrage and wholesale folks. And, it can end up where you get everything that you wanted on paper 5 years ago. You have that $5 million a year business. You have that $8 million a year business. You have your warehouse and your team of people. and you're still miserable and you still don't have enough cash, and you still don't have enough time, or you're not doing any of the things that you really started your business to do. So you have to build intentionally and really look at, is what got you here might not get you there. So it's not just about scaling up what you're already doing. Sometimes you have to, especially as you have rapid growth as a brand owner or any business owner, shifting that mindset from elbow grease and scrappiness and getting it done to building up a kind of more CEO kind of mentality around the way that you operate your business.
We're actually going through that motion right now with my Amazon Guy agency. So we have both full service clients, and then we also have kind of like project based clients. And so we're revamping the website to kind of retool to try and chase or focus more on full service clients. And as a consequence, I'm rolling out more of a coaching service for problem based or project based clients, so that I could shell out, you need to talk about creative, cool, you talk to my creative coach. You need to talk about tactics or strategy, you talk to this person. Instead of taking a project-based approach, because it's kind of complicated to add in a Seller Central account. You got user permissions, then you got to get back and forth and deliveries and all that stuff. So we're going through that motion right now, kind of intentionally ourselves. So I like that. So I'm a guy that can only do work on a desktop computer. I need to get in my office and focus in. Some others can travel and laptop it. Have you gone through a transformation there yourself, or what would you consider yourself?
So I work on my laptop on all sorts of locations all the time. So we'll do, at least not this year, but normally we'll do, 2 or 3 or 4 week vacation throughout the year, but I'll work. I have a friend, Cindy, that has, she's really done what Mike McAllowitz says in his books, and she's been able to take 4 week breaks without even checking in on her business. But the idea of a laptop lifestyle in Amazon is ridiculous.
What do you mean? What kind of laptop are you using for your passive income? Come on, Robyn.
You can have a life, you can be checking in on your laptop and you can be working. I've had the privilege of going to different countries and working. My sister lives by the beach, and so I'll go work by the beach. But one of the things that you need to think about is you will need to be checking in, and you will need to be doing consistent work all the way through. Now, the type of work that you do is different. So when I first started, I was doing a lot of shopping, a lot of sourcing, a lot of shipping, a lot of product creation, these kinds of things. Now, what I'm really looking at doing is I'm managing teams. I'm setting up, goals. I'm monitoring things. So you can change the way that you're doing so it's less manual labor, but you still need to be actively engaged in your business. I know many multimillionaires, and they are all still active in their businesses to at least some degree. It's pretty rare unless somebody was gifted a business, or they had some sort of inheritance, or it's gotten to the point where it's like at an IPO level that they're able to check out and still be able to cash in.
Yeah, and that's kind of, going back to the rich dad, poor dad comment, right? There's 4 quads. You're employed, time equals money. If you're self-employed, time equals money times 2. Then you're a business owner. The transformation between self-employed and business owner, though, by definition in the book, to be a business owner, your business has to run itself. You're not in the day-to-day affairs. And then finally, quad 4, investor. So yeah, I mean, very difficult to make that transition between quad 3 and 4, going from self-employed to business owner, no doubt. All right,
being a business owner, really, if you follow Sharon, and Sharon is great. So I know everybody thinks of Rich Dad Poor Dad, they think of Robert, but Robert didn't. Robert just had the idea for the game. Did you know that actually the book wasn't supposed to be a book? It was just supposed to be a brochure for the game.
I had no idea.
They thought their brand was Cash Flow 101, when really, when people knew them, they knew them as the Rich Dad Poor Dad because the book was so popular.
Wow.
But if you follow Sharon, one of the things that she'll teach you is that you really have to go from being an owner operator to being a business owner. And there's nothing wrong with being an owner operator. There's a time and a place for that, and there's benefits. You're able to be more flexible. You can you have less accountability, so you have more freedom to kind of change course. However, there's also a cost to that, and that cost is you have less redundancy. So if you are going to remain an owner operator, if you're saying, you know what, I've tried to outsource, and I've tried to build teams, and I've tried to build systems, and I don't do well at it, then that's okay. You don't have to. You can choose to stay in that quadrant. Know that there's going to be fewer opportunities to kind of reduce your workflow over time. So you need to really be investing heavily in retirement so that you do not have to do this forever. And you also need to be investing really heavily right now into making sure you're able to self-insure in case you are taken out of the business. So if you don't build the systems, if you're like, I'm just not going to do that, then that's okay. But you need to build up a nice cushion of cash for if you were to be taken out by COVID or by something else, that you and your family will be able to survive through that.
I think it's wise advice, whether you're a business owner or not, just to have a pad so you can go 6 months without income. Instead of buying that yacht or that boat or the new house or car, whatever it is. Good advice. Definitely something you would hear on a conservative talk show radio host who might say, stay out of debt. All right. So let's transition the podcast towards kind of just topics of what's on your mind. So Amazon is constantly changing. It's been a really rough last 30 days for our agency, keeping up with all the catalog changes and all the hidden suppressions and all the bull crap that Amazon's changing in their UI and OTP breaking. And I probably could drone on for 5 minutes, so I'll stop. What's on your mind though? Like what changes are keeping you up at night, or what are you seeing that people could learn from?
So, I think it's really important to always look at when Amazon makes a change, what problem are they trying to solve? And sometimes we don't know that because we just don't have enough information. But, with IPIs, and, I know that affected a lot of people, especially in the private label community, with inbound restrictions. Amazon is anticipating that there is going to be a problem at the warehouse.
Yeah, I think they thought they were going to be completely filled up and literally no room. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and so, when I talk with large brands that are in Home Depot and Lowe's, or, brands that are in every store in their category, what I'm hearing is they're concerned about the logistics of being able to, one, stay in stock, to being able to get that item out to the customer. And so I know that you've talked a little bit about those logistic pieces and that people need to do that. But I also think it's really that I think and so people have been getting better at looking at what their stock levels are, looking at their supply chain, looking at their logistics and pricing. But that also means looking at your cash flow. There's a chance that for some of you, your Q4 has already happened this year. And so you need to be monitoring your cash flow for that, if that's the case. So if because of the way that your system is set up, you're not able to get that redundancy in your logistics, you might not get the normal Q4 bump that you normally do, not because people aren't buying, but because you're having problems getting your products to the customer. And the other thing we need to look at is, what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks could affect consumer confidence. If there's any discord about how the election is going to be taking place, that could affect things like the dollar. It could affect inflation, and it could affect how much people are doing as far as shopping. Same thing with any stimulus bills. So you kind of do need to not be obsessed with current events, but you do need to be watching and kind of monitoring that, because that will affect, but even the big box stores like Home Depot, normally they give our clients like, this is how many units we think we're going to need. This year they, for some of our clients, they didn't give those estimates because they don't know. And so flexibility is really going to be key this year as well.
I think it's another Black Swan mark, right? Like the unknown, right? So like there's an actual book called The Black Swan, and that's what I'm referring to this podcast with. And the dude in that book just completely indicts the bell curve, right? And this year is just like a case example of how the bell curve couldn't help you handle anything this year. And even Home Depot is not even using the bell curve right now. They're like, I don't know. I mean, we might sell 1 million fridges. We might sell one. We're not really sure. Everybody bought a second fridge this year because they're staying at home. They need places to put food and whatever. So yeah, I think that's a good observation. What else is on your mind?
There if you were a member of the catalog team, know that you were missed. I know you're probably still working, but we really miss being able to talk to you. Um,
Yeah.
that was so the reduced capacity to actually reach somebody because so many of Amazon folks are working at home. And I'm so glad that they're working at home and that they're being safe. And I'm so glad that Amazon is doing everything they can to protect the workers that, aren't essential to be physically present. But it has made things harder. And so I mean, we have a Facebook group that helps support people with like listing changes and optimizations and ads. And one of the things that people are like, I tried and I'm not getting through. I tried to make my listing change, it's not going through. And I kind of feel like a broken record because it's about being professionally persistent. And you
Great
have
way
to
to put it.
keep going at it. Remember, these are people. Remember, it's not their fault. Remember, some of them,
They may not even know what's going on, to be honest.
no, and
Like
the
on
turnover.
925, I thought there was an algorithm change. Nobody knows anything. Every
No,
person I've talked to at Amazon, they're kind of skirting talking to me about it because they don't know, right? Like,
and
and
even if they could, they wouldn't be able to tell you.
probably not.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, when you're having those conversations, you can probably get a sense like if they know or they don't, right? But yeah, they don't. I don't think they do. Um, so like all of these things that are changing or breaking, like take hidden suppressions for example. Right now, it's like in Seller Central. If you go to the drop down for suppressions, it says 0. Well, then you go on Amazon.com and search your ASIN and it doesn't come up. It's a hidden suppression. Nobody at support knows anything about this. And what we figured out is if you do a template upload for your category ID, it fixes it. So there's probably some things like that you've probably picked up on. What kind of tips or management techniques besides the persistence one you mentioned already would you suggest people engage in right now?
If you don't have brand registry and you have the ability to get brand registry, you should take the time to do that, even if you have
That
to
one's
do
a
the IP
no-brainer.
accelerator.
That was a no-brainer like 2 years ago. So if somebody
I
needs that
know.
advice today, they're in trouble. But I will say this: it's not too late. Go file a trademark. We at my Amazon guy do file trademarks, and there's a really good development on this in the last 2 weeks. There's now a way without using IP Accelerator, you can now submit your brand for brand registry with a pending trademark, brand spanking new, which is really cool.
And then, because a lot of the things people are getting are those, I think it's like 5445, or there's a couple of errors that people are getting
Yes,
quite often.
yes, that error is
And,
annoying. I do not like
yeah.
that error.
And so the other thing is, you need to be, if you need to be really clear on the policies for GTN exemptions. You need to be really clear. There's been more mismatching issues that people have been having, and you need to be really thoughtful in the way that you construct your seller support tickets. What we
Error
recommend,
code 5665 is the
yes.
Amazon must approve your brand error. And that takes about 7 to 10 days on average to solve from our experience. And you have to ask for approval. It's really super weird. It seems like that change is a little bit older. That one dates back to June. But basically, they were trying to prop up brand registry and prop up brands. I think that's why they did that. Doesn't affect old sellers. It's only when you're bringing a new brand to your account. So if you haven't run into that error yet, you won't until you add a new
Well,
brand to your account.
yeah, I don't think it has to do with age of the account. I think it has to do with the relationship of the account to the new brand.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. But and then there's been more the error that you get when the GTIN doesn't match the database at GS1. That's been coming up more often, especially for people who are recycling UPCs, which again, we should have known this for a long time ago. The writing has been on the wall for a long time, but a lot of people were able to get away with it before, and so they didn't change their
What
processes.
What's ironic about this is I've actually had more challenges with GS1 registered UPCs than I have with quote unquote recycled UPCs. It seems like the Chinese hacked GS1. That's at least what I found. It's weird.
I haven't had that experience, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It just hasn't been, what we've dealt with mostly. But we're mostly working with brand owners themselves, and so because we have access to brand registry, we're not running into some of the same problems. I would say that the lost inventory is going to be a bigger problem, and it takes a long time. So if you hire somebody that's supposed to get that reimbursement, you need to plan on. That's not going to be a weekend kind of thing. That takes
Like
a
a six
long time.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes more.
reconciliation right now.
Yeah.
Good luck until January. That's all I gotta say.
We have somebody and they're like, I thought you, and you said a long time, but I thought you meant like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, 2 or 3 weeks would have been fast because we have to submit the ticket and then we have to wait for it. We have to wait the 48 hours and then we have to wait the 15 days
Follow
and then we have
up.
to, yeah. So it's about consistent, professionally persistent follow up. And then, the other thing that I think that Amazon has changed a lot of have added so many new ad types and so many new things to their advertising portfolio that you could be missing out significantly if you're only running sponsored products, especially on highly competitive products. If you really, Amazon had a conference specifically for high volume advertisers and agencies. And one of the things that they talked about in that thing was how much better results people were getting when they used the combination of the ad products. So people who did sponsor brands, sponsor display, and sponsor products did better than people who just did sponsor products. And people who'd use DSP plus those other ad types also did even better. Now, DSP is out of range for most small brands, but you can use sponsor brands, sponsor display, and sponsor products to not only do a lot of cross advertising, but also to be able to, get some bids in that aren't quite as expensive because fewer people really understand the sponsored display and sponsor brands.
I think probably one of my favorite positive changes about Amazon this year was around advertising types. Video ads, which have been around almost a full year now, really took off back in June, in my opinion. And then we've got just in the last month, we've seen display ads with text. And then one, I don't remember the timing on this one, but it was also relatively recent in the last 3 or 4 months, which was custom brand headline images.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are still ignoring that one for some reason, despite the fact it gets like, I don't know, twice as much space on the platform.
And
So it's
Amazon
good.
is really pushing stores. They
Yeah, they
really
are.
are really pushing stores. So when
Which
Amazon's really pushing something, I really focus on it because there could be some other product that,
about to come out.
yeah. And if you're not sure, like if you have a store and you're trying to decide, should I invest the time in really upgrading that or not, you can find you can actually see how much traffic that store page is getting. But it's not just about the traffic. It's about the way that you can run sponsored brands to those specific things. And they've made some changes now with stores. So you can have it so that, if just for Black Friday, you want your store to look differently, you can set
Big
that up.
change.
So it goes, and that makes a big difference. And keeping your store updated is going to be more important than it used to be because it's all about what's relative to what people see from other big brands. I think stores can be a great way to show that your brand has a little bit more authority, and they can definitely help with the conversion that you're getting from your sponsored brands.
I feel like Amazon is trying to allow for more what I like to call human marketing.
Yeah.
And I think the brand store is a great case example of that. Video ads, the actual text and display ads, all great case examples of the human element coming to fruition. So while a lot of PPC automation's been, pretty hot topic, we see that PPC automation is just going to allow you more time to do the human element marketing, in my opinion. It won't be a replacement for some of that, especially with all those changes, at least from my perspective. So, all right. So you've covered a lot of ground on some of these things. What do you think, as we look into Q4, what's the most important thing somebody could do right now?
I mean, I feel like I don't want to harp on it, but I mean,
You can talk logistics. I get it.
like you need to have a 3P offer, or you need to have a merchant fulfilled
Merchant
offer,
fulfilled and FBA.
and you need to
Yeah.
both.
Which,
And,
by the way, we observed on Prime Day, they actually flipped from FBA to merchant
mhm.
fulfilled in the buy box because I honestly think just got overwhelmed. So I'm actually kind of wondering on Black Friday weekend, or Turkey 5, as Amazon's calling it, if people should turn off merchant fulfilled, but then flip it back on the Tuesday following Cyber Monday, just to avoid having the merchant fulfilled orders or whatnot. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm still thinking about it. What are your thoughts?
I think that, I mean, so if I could have somebody set up ideally, like I could bibbity boppity boo, I would have it so they had merchant fulfill offers in at least 2 parts in the country, especially if you're a high volume seller, because you want to be able to get that quickly. You
Yep.
need to be, and so the biggest thing is you need to be stress testing now. So you turn your FBA offer for a day off, and then do some merchant fulfill, and or do it with a different product, and see how many orders can your team get out in a day without wanting to kill themselves, because and how many is doable, like on a day that's not going to kill your staff who are all going to want to quit. Because if you have 3 weeks of that, you're going to have attrition, and staff turnover is very expensive. So do you
Rough.
need to bring additional warm bodies in? Do you need to reduce how many you're able to work with? Do you need to partner, like yesterday, with another 3PL that can help you reduce that staff? How are you going to make sure that those go out on time? Because late shipment rates can get your account suspended like nothing else. So I think that that's going to be really, really important. And then, beyond that, monitoring your supply chains and making sure that you're being proactive enough to make sure you have inventory all the way through Christmas and into Q1, because especially it looks like we could be heading towards another round of craziness.
Yeah, this morning,
Yeah.
Europe just passed the United States for COVID deaths per million.
Mm-hmm.
So Europe is on fire again, and it wouldn't surprise me if Asia follows suit here pretty quickly. So yeah, those are things we can't control as business owners, but what we can control is what we do about it. A couple of months ago, I made the claim that I felt like just-in-time supply chain management is dead. And that's a bold statement, right?
I just think it's in a coma. I think it
It's
will
in a
be
coma.
back. I
It might
think
be dead. We don't know.
it's in a medically induced coma where thoughts and prayers,
Yeah.
I think it will be back. But I think that for the next, until things stabilize, I think that it probably is going to be just-in-time inventory is really risky right now, because if especially, so think about how bad it is normally on a normal year, getting that first Q1 restock around Chinese New Year.
It's always been rough.
It's always been rough, and now everybody's already backed up. Components are backed up. We had a company that was all ready to start doing a big ad spend. They went to their manufacturer and they said, the cans that we need to package your good, they're just not, we don't have them. Because
Sorry.
nobody knows how to cook, so everybody's using more cans. So you might find that even though you're doing tennis balls, because people are buying a lot of canned soup, you might not be able to get the material you need to make the lids for your tennis balls.
That's freaking
You know,
crazy.
yeah. So, you need to be thinking, you need to be talking to all the way up your supply chain, really be clear on what you're going to be dealing with. And then you also need to really be managing your cash flow, especially if you have employees. You have a responsibility to make sure that if you hit that bump, you're not going to have to lay people off as much as you can.
Well, wise words there. All right, so you beat me to my next question, which was, okay, now that we get through Q4, what should we do for next year as we look ahead? And kind of the same answer: make sure your supply chain is intact. And I think that's the obvious one.
And don't rush for the gold. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be another mask, another hand sanitizer,
Or fidget spinner. Yeah.
fidget spinner. Like there's going to be something. When you all run to that, you kill it. So let other people run and kill that. And then you take something that they ran away from that was doing well before, and then you can and just stay in your lane and stay in your core competencies. In general, that does better. I had so many companies that came to us and like, well, we normally make high bounce balls, but now we're making desanitizing wipes. Well, they don't know about the safety requirements. They don't know about hazmat. They don't know about any of the things that you really need to know. And so now they're stuck with them.
And then all the competitions come in and the supply is way bigger than the demand. Fidget
Yep.
spinner of 2020.
Yep. So there will be something else of that nature that's going to be coming up. There always is. Try to avoid that temptation and really just focus on your core competencies. And then, making sure that you have backups upon backups, not only for your health, but about your cash flow look at, this might be a good time to say, okay, if my staff wasn't able to be packaging goods or be doing something else, what else could we offer? But the big companies that I'm working with, they are really looking at managing their supply chain because they know everything depends on that. Like, yes, listing changes are incredibly frustrating. Yes, the warehouse distribution changes and all of that, they're all frustrating, but none of that matters if you don't have goods to sell.
Well, I think that's very wise words from you, Robyn. All right, so as we kind of wrap up our podcast today, tell me something that's dear to you specifically. What makes your heart sing?
Well, you have to say your kids first, right? So obviously my kids.
One of my guests, I thought they were about to say kids, and they're like, nope, I wanted a motorcycle when I was 14 and I moved out of my parents' house. So
there's no better
it can be
sound.
whatever you want. I won't judge.
There's no better sound than hearing your kids belly laugh. That's the best sound in the world.
Belly laugh, yeah.
But outside of my kids and my husband, which is a given because I'm kind of obsessed with my husband, and my kids are like my everything. And it's the reason we started our business is so that we could have a more secure life for them. But outside of that, it's Disney. I have a mask that says missing home. Wow. And it has got a castle on it. I love Disney. There was a point in our business where I read Walt Disney's, a biography on Walt Disney by Neil Gabler, and just the amount of failure and the amount of dedication, how he threw his whole self into things, even just his hobbies. It made me really fall in love with it. I grew up in LA, so I had a lot of nostalgia around Disney. I cannot be with my dad, but when I'm riding Star Tours, I feel my dad's arms around me.
Wow.
It's a special place. And, I did a lot of arbitrage at Disney for a long time. So we have a lot of memories there. Disney makes me really happy. But nothing makes me more happy than my kids and seeing them happy. And
Disney and kids can go together. So you got a double win there. That's great.
I do. Yes.
All right. Well, last question for you. Anything else you want to talk about today, or any parting thoughts?
I would just say, when you go to outsource, you need to think about when you go to hire out or provide redundancy, you can either hire a specialist or you can train an in-house team to do it. And so, if you're hiring an in-house team, or, if you're hiring somebody to do it for you, you need to really look at, what case studies can they provide you? What level of authority do they have? Do they demonstrate? Can you do a smaller contract with them to kind of make sure that they are going to be the right fit for you? But once you let them have it, you need to let them have it, and you need to have really clear measures on how you're going to determine whether that relationship is a success. If you're going to bring it in-house, then you need to know enough about it to be able to train people how to do it, or you need to hire that specialist to come in and train your team. And then when you're hiring somebody in-house, the benefits are that they're all completely focused on your brand. So that's of course a benefit. But that also means that you need to be managing proactively. If you haven't read, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber in a long time, you really need to reread it. And management by abdication can be a real quick way to let your business kind of circle the drain, because it takes a while for you to realize things have gone off the rails. So it's not just about creating the systems and outsourcing and hiring. It's also about managing the people. And so once you've read 4 Disciplines of Execution, the other 2 books I really highly recommend are Rocket Fuel and the 4 Disciplines of Execution. Those are 2 really important ones, especially if you're past $1 million in revenue, which most of you are, that you want to be looking at those 2 books as well.
Well, I think those are wise words. We're going to throw as many of the value adds with links into the description notes as we can. I've got Rich Dad, Poor Dad linked, as well as many of the other things we name dropped on our pod today. Robyn, thanks for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
It was a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening to the My Amazon Guy podcast. This was the My Amazon Guy podcast with Stephen Pope. Each episode helps you grow your sales on Amazon through ideas on traffic and conversion rate improvements. Hit that subscribe button right now to tune in each week. And if you need more help, go to myamazonguy.com.